What is up, ninjas? My name is Serum, and today we're going to be going over the layering of selected style sounds to create something that resembles selected or this future deep house kind of thing that has been blowing up with people like Rehab, people like Pep and Rash, and a lot of other cats getting into it. The purpose of today's video, guys, is actually pretty simple. It's going to be coming down to layering and mixing. So we're going to be having a bass, a mid-layer lead, and a top-layer lead that we're going to combine together to get something that sounds selected, something that sounds this new style of deep house that everyone is getting into. Now, please keep in mind, guys, that you can get unique with these layers. For instance, the bass, as long as it's providing a good amount of low end, it's good to go. The mid could be any type of plucky synth that is giving a good amount of body, and the top lead is going to be the leading pop star. A lot of times, if you hear the smoother style of deep house, they're going to utilize marimbas, kalimbas, and stuff to get that vibe that a lot of you guys like. While if you look at other artists like Stephen Murphy or Kesh, you know, who I'm big fans of and follow this channel. Hi guys. They're utilizing more EDM-ish style of top leads in their music, which are a little bit more distorted than the marimba and the kalimba. But that goes to show is that you can get creative with this. Even though it's a standard that most people are doing, you can change that top lead for whatever you think sounds good, percussive, like a vocal shot, a vocal sample. Make a vocal sample lead. You can find a new percussive instrument no one knows about and layer it on top and see if it works. That's the fun thing about it. Once you know how to layer it together, you can go on a mission to just find something fresh. Now this Friday, guys, the selected style sound mix will be coming out over at evilsounds.com. This is a sound mix that I made live with a lot of you guys on live streams. About a few months working it, and it's finally done, and I can't wait for you guys to test it out. A lot of the sounds we're going to be using here are going to come from there, and it's going to contain a lot of the standard sounds most people are using, as well as some fresh ones that you can possibly use to get a more unique vibe. Make sure to check it out on Friday, guys, and let's get straight into this tutorial.
All right, fam, and here we are inside of Ableton. So I picked out the sounds. In fact, the sounds we're using are from the previous tutorial, but we're going to talk about the process and the theory behind the way we do things here. So right now we have these three sounds layered together to give us this. All right, one of them is going to be the standard FM style bass, which you can make. I've made a tutorial on this, but usually you have two signs. You have FM one going to the other, from this guy going into this guy through FM at a very high FM pitch ratio. So here we have a 2 or 3 to 1 pitch ratio, 0 to 2 here. So that's going to give a bit of distortion, OTT on it, just to get it to punch. However, for this bass, obviously we just want it for the lows. We don't want to have it fully there because we don't want it fighting with the top lead. We can maybe keep a bit of the mid lows just because right now my intentions with this are to widen these sounds. But if I do not intend to widen these and I want to have a very mono driven style of synth sound and then have the drums be wide, then this would have to go a little bit more down. There we go. So instantly doing that, you can see the sounds start to fit a bit more well together. We're starting to make room for everything, and that is the key thing when layering sounds, guys. You just don't want to layer a bunch of sounds that are taking up the same frequencies and call it a day. I see this done a lot, and it sometimes works out, but a majority of the time, sometimes people ask me, why can't I get my track as loud? Why can't I get my lead sound kind of dirty? They don't sound clean as yours or clean as this guy's. That is because sometimes you are just over layering, creating an abundance of frequencies instead of just getting the right layers and giving the sounds the respect that they deserve. Man, you know, respect sounds, synth sounds matter. What's up? All right, so the next one we have is going to be the iconic one. So this sound is actually made by utilizing a noise glass lid. If I get rid of the sine wave, it sounds like this. Now the sine wave is what gives it that body. Sine wave has a bit of FM going into it, as you can see. Okay, so that's what we're going to be utilizing there. On this guy, again, we're going to EQ it just to get rid of lows we don't need. Around there, the reason for this is because now we have this one here, which has a lot of meat. It has a lot of body to it. So we're going to use this one as well, this bad boy right here. But however, we're not going to use the highs from it. Maybe just reduce them a bit. We're going to use the body part of it. So that way, once we have everything together, and that's the important way, is that they sound good together. Not each sound sounds good and then they sound like crap together. Now the next tip is when you're layering, guys, and let's say you go up to 5 layers, start removing layers. And if they don't change, if the sound doesn't change, you don't need that layer. So you can see this is giving a little bit of mid-lows to it, a little bit. It's not as noticeable, but you can tell it changes the sound just a tiny bit. Okay, so from there, I'm going to group these guys because in Ableton now we can group within a group. We're going to call these the leads, and now we're going to get these guys to sound as one. So the first thing we've got to decide is if you want this to be in mono or in stereo. If you want it to be in stereo, I cannot stress enough that this wider by Polyverse. I talked about it in the last tutorial, and I'm going to be talking about it today as well. It's a free plugin that widens your sound utilizing comb filtering. But what they promise is that when you use their wider, which is free, it doesn't mess up the mono compatibility, so it will sound the same in stereo and the same in mono. So when we do widen this sound, the sound changes completely, and this is what some people like. Some people are going to want to go this route. I'm going to show you guys another example utilizing layering, but not one that's going to be more mono after this one. And you're going to see the difference. So now we have that. It's all about keeping it simple, guys. I'm going to add just a tad bit of compression. Now, I'm not going to go with the OTT on this because I feel like the OTT is not going to get along with the high frequencies of this sound that we have. So what I'm going to do here is just add a bit of a catch the peak style compression. What that means is the attack and the release are pretty low, and all it's doing is it's kind of catching the peaks of any individual sound that's louder than the other just to get them dynamically to kind of be the same. When you do catch the peaks on a song, you know, sometimes it's because it's too clicky or there's this sound that just punches out too much and you want to tame it. When you're doing it, don't push it hard, because if you push it hard, you're going to start to hear some distortion coming from the overload on the compressor. Instead, try and make the needle dance around the zero. You want it to come up but also come back down to zero, because if it's staying up there, like let's say at a 5 gain reduction, that's what that graph is telling us, then you are probably just pushing it too hard when you're utilizing this kind of format. So a lot of times we just wanted to kind of control those peaks. From there, we're going to be putting a bit of reverb, and that reverb is very important. You can choose to go with a high bass reverb, or you can go with more mid-lows. We're going to use the diffusion network to get rid of some of the highs here. A little bit more decay. Lower the size, and we're going to go around 30. Okay, so once we have that bad boy there, it's time to sidechain. Now, doing the sidechain is pretty easy. A couple tips, though. If you're sidechaining these leads, sidechain everything below 600, the stock one. That way you don't lose the punch that those leads have, because if you sidechain normal, you lose the t on certain times. It lands on the beat on the 1, on the 2, and the 3, and the 4. Take it off. So, you know, that's what we want. So we split it so that way we sidechain everything below 600. But we still maintain that tip part of the sound, which is what we want to really hit it. On the bass, just sidechain the shit out of it. No one gives a fuck about the bass. Just kidding. We're going to do that there. Move this a little back to get rid of any clicks, and we should be good on the bass. Okay, now if I get rid of that clap here that we don't need, it's going to sound like this. We're going to utilize span just to see the frequency response of. So from here, other things we can do is some songs will have this be really washed out with reverb, so they'll increase that a little bit more, lower decay time on it, maybe a little bit more high. You know, the key thing with this is knowing how to utilize the reverb to get what you want. So if you hear a song, you're like, man, that reverb is so nice. Hear the reverb, be like, all right, is it a mid-low bass reverb? Is it a high bass reverb? And then know how to achieve it. Some tips for that is that if you want, obviously, a high bass reverb, the input processing, aka the EQ that is applied into the sound before it reaches the reverb itself, that creates the nice woof sound that we like. If we want all highs, obviously give more highs. If you want just mid-lows, give more mid-lows. If you want a bit of a modulation to it, you can apply a bit of chorus, which is going to pitch automate the reverb. My best advice is to put it at 100%, mess with the reverb, and then from there you can pull back. Higher size is going to make the reverb be a little bit more pushed to the back of the mix, but it will also give a reverb that is not so much high in the high frequencies as a low size. Also, a low size will be more in front of the mix. So from there, I believe you have enough to know how to alter the reverb. There are more settings to it, which I feel, are useful, but a lot of times I don't even touch them unless you're doing something very specific like sound design based. Okay, and that's going to be the first sound we do. Now let's do another one a bit differently, layering different other sounds. All right, guys, so here we have a couple more sounds. I've gotten rid of the processing except for the sidechain, of course, which is going to be the same. The bass is going to be one a little bit more rougher. It's going to be called Puerto Vallarta. So we're going to utilize that. We've chosen a lead which is a bit different. And then we've chosen one last one called Marimba. Now this one feels like we're going to have to put it up an octave just because it sounds a little out. With that being said, right now this sounds like this. So we're going to try and make that sound good, okay? So the first thing is this guy, we're going to put it up an octave, obviously. We're going to get rid of the reverb, maybe the OTT. We're going to shape it so that it's more of a pluck. Okay, so I think that sounds pretty good there. Okay, so we're going to have that as a layer. Now the marimba. Okay, cool. So once we have that, now it's time to layer. So the bass. We're going to make sure, again, it's mono. I like my bass is mono. However, if you want to make it wide, you can, as long as you have all the sub frequencies be in mono. So there we go. Okay, so this is going to sound more future bounce, as you can see straight away. So now let's go into the lead. Let's see if we can get the mid from the leads without that much highs and have this guy cover more of the highs to give the punch. We're going to boost a bit just because we don't have that much information. Let's give a bit of highs here, but lower it down so like we still have them, but they're not as dominant. And we should be good to go. Now, let's process it together to try and get it to sound as good. First things first, we're going to add that. This lead, maybe it has a tad bit too much decay time, so maybe we can make it a little bit more pluckier. That's where it comes good to know how to manipulate the presets that you're going to be using, guys, to get them however you want. I'm a mono legato at a bit of always so that it glides. Same thing to the marimba, we're going to do that as well. I feel like OTT will probably work good here if we give it a shot. So let's apply a bit of that OTT. See if it meshes good together. And then what I want to do is widen this to see how that would sound like. Maybe widen the top layer of it. See if that can maybe give us something cool. Let's try maybe give some of those mid-lows back. Since we widened this one's now in stereo, and the other one is still kind of in mono there. So we can maybe have the highs on both, where they're not really in the same position stereo image wise, but they'll work together because one's in mono, the other one's. Let's try maybe lowering this one down an octave. You can see it kind of starts to lose that key tonality. It gets a little bit out of tune, like a bad singer that's not fully on the note. But the important thing is how they sound like together. And right now, when you get them together, they aren't really fighting like that. You know, this guy's taking charge, of course, but this doesn't really alter it. It doesn't make it sound out of. Let's try maybe making both of them be wide and see how that sounds like. We gotta fine tune that reverb a bit. So this is just lacking a bit more atmosphere. Obviously, like something like white noise maybe could be added to get it better. We can maybe try with the reverb just a little bit more decay time. Check span just to see how the highs. That 516 is bothering me just a tiny bit, so we're going to go there. There's like an abundance of frequency there. So we're going to kind of fine tune that if we can, just a little bit. In fact, we're going to do it to the whole lead bus and EQ it together as a whole, just to get it off. You know, treat it as it's one sound. Don't just go into each one individually. So we're going to go 516 on that, and we're going to kind of move that up. Okay, cool. Let's see if the OTT, we can put it behind this so it doesn't add any frequencies back. I do want to add a glue. I want to get rid of the feeling it has. It slaps. Like, it really slaps that lead, but maybe it slaps too much where it's kind of hurting. Okay, cool. Now let's see if we kind of lower this down more, if it'll work. It kind of works. It just depends on what you really like. I prefer it up here. So. Okay, so as you guys saw, I wanted to show you guys these two examples. One, doing the generic route where we just use the marimba or kalimba-based sound, and using other sounds. So for instance, this lead actually comes from the Future Bounce Revolution pack. It's meant to be used in Future Bounce, but it can work here again if we do the proper changes to it rather than having it be so. You know, this long. It doesn't make sense because you can easily differentiate the sounds, but if we give both the sounds the right amount of kind of decay and all that, that's when it starts to be a little bit more like, okay. So in review, guys, what we did is we layered some sounds together to make a little nice sounding kind of drop. Basic, but nice. And then we used more different sounds from different genres just to get them together. At the end of the day, guys, it's all about that. And if you can find unique sounds to layer on top of each other so you can get something that sounds similar but different in uniqueness, then that's kind of like the key, you know. Keep a little bit of the same old, but change something to sell that it's still a selected deep house, but a fresh new take on it. You know, you want to kind of maintain what people know and kind of say, okay, this is selected because it has that nice marimba plug, but I've never heard someone layering that top lead on it to make it sound harder and a little bit more upbeat and whatnot. So that is going to be the tutorial, guys. Hopefully you find it useful. Hopefully it helps. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for the feedback stream. You guys take care. And the selected sound mix will be coming out Friday. The name for it is going to be something like Aureales Borealis or some shit like that. I think it's the Northern Lights. However, it might be selection as well. I'm still thinking about it. But you guys take care and peace out. You guys have a good one.